Hey, what's going on, everyone? DS, Edo, XRP Queen. We still have a few more guests that need to come through. Sorry for starting a couple minutes late. Andrew Forte is also going to be here, but he's about 15 minutes out. Yeah, I'm excited for this one. We did a Safe Moon community space, I think a month or two ago, and that was awesome. And we did a Dogecoin community space, which kicked all these off. And the Dogecoin one lasted for, I think, 7.5 hours. It was a it was a long one. It was a fun one, and we figure why not get the XRP army in here next. I was trying to rope BitBoy in, but I know he's a bit busy right now. But yeah, anyway, I don't know. I don't know what agenda Andrew had in mind. I have an agenda that I have prepared, and I want to start off first of all by going with each guest and having them introduce themselves. Edo, let's start with you, sir. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's Edo Farina. If not, we can jump to DS.
Yeah, it's right, mate.
Go for it.
Sorry, for some reason I was not listening to you before. I'm not sure if it was your microphone, if it was my audio, but yes, you said it correctly. And thanks for inviting to the space. So I was not sure what was going on before.
No worries. Are you able to hear me now? So let's go with DS next. I don't know if I'm having connection issues or not, but I'll check with.
Mine is fine, I hope. Okay. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure. And XRP Queen, welcome to the stage. You want to give a quick intro to our audience?
Hey guys, thank you for having me. So I'm XRP Queen. I'm pretty new to the crypto space, but I first found out about XRP about a year ago. I was actually getting some lip filler done, and the girl said to me, "Oh, you do crypto? Have you heard of XRP?" And I thought, "No, what's that?" I fell in love straight away. So yeah, I'm pretty new, but I know everyone here. I love everyone here. There's some girls in the audience too, which I love to see. Crypto is majority men, so having girls up on stage like Jenna's come in, Rose has come in, it's a lot, and I love it. I love to see it.
Absolutely, it's important to have female representation in the space. Super male heavy. Guys, would love to know, starting off, what piqued your interest in XRP and why you're so bullish. We can start with Edo since you have your mic unqueued.
Well, Noah, there are some major issues with the XRP army, apparently.
DS, in that case, let's start with you, sir. And if, by the way, if anyone wants to come up and join the stage really quick, you're more than welcome as well. But DS, mic's yours, sir.
Well, with pleasure. Thank you again for having us. Hello, everybody. Good evening from Europe. DS, yeah, well, most of the XRP people know me. I'm the founder of Expector in here as well. We are a metaverse NFT project, have our own native marketplace as well. So lots of things going on. What is important for me today is are we discussing XRP or are we discussing the XRP ledger? Because there's a huge difference that most people don't get.
I'm glad you made that distinction because I think a lot of people aren't aware of the XRP ledger. I want to talk about the entire ecosystem. So let's if you want, DS, give us a high-level overview of the ledger they're building out and all the things that excite you about it.
Well, I have to admit I'm not a huge technical guy. I'm not a developer at all. I was a property developer in a previous life. I went to law school, so about the legal aspects I can tell you some things. We all know, of course, about the Ripple SEC case, something that's way underestimated by lots of people in crypto, and I think is an important prejudice for all of us. So let us hope at least that there's a good outcome for Ripple, whatever you feel about XRP or the XRP ledger. XRP, of course, is the coin, similar to ETH or Bitcoin or whatever. For me, my choice wasn't immediately driven by technology initially. I was thrown in by one of Edo's friends as well, Panos Mikras, who is one of my advisors, and he pointed out to an XRP project or XRPL project early 2022, I guess. I heavily invested in them. It became a reasonable success, and I have been reading about NFTs, and for me, it's an interesting thing. The deed of ownership, actually, not the PFP part. And after a few months being in the space and being in all kinds of Discord and investing in lots of other projects, building on there, I thought, well, most of it is crap. Like most NFT projects, by the way. So I'm not a typical Web3 guy. I guess I have a very controversial statements, but well, after reading white papers and stuff, I just saw that lots of it is total nonsense. Not only on the XRPL for that matter, but on any chain. So I thought, well, let's start something and let's try to build something and give the community something that they actually deserve. And that's what we've been doing since I thought we started out the 1st of April last year. It started out I thought it was a good starting date. People would have probably thought it was a joke, but here we are 10 months later, 10 exchange listings, billboard on Times Square, fully functioning. First episode of the Unreal Engine, hyper realistic metaverse, exchange listings again, our own native marketplace, fully in-house developed, and looking into other chains as well. So I think that most of the XRPL people or XRP people have some affinity with some other chains, XDC, HBAR, Avalanche, and Flare for sure. And those are chains that we will be integrating on our own marketplace, for example.
Hey, thank you, DS. I want to jump to Jamie. Jamie, welcome. Before you dive in, give us a quick intro, give the audience a quick intro into yourself, and then we can get it going.
Hey guys, can you guys hear me pretty well there?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Perfect. I'm in my vehicle. Just want to make sure I can be heard here. Guys, my name is Jaime, part of the XRPL community. Just a great community member. Did want to speak on something real quick. DS, of course, thanks for coming up here and enlightening a little bit into the XRPL. He's amazing, great. Always open to getting on spaces, even on a short notice. He'll jump on it, put himself out there, let people know what Expector's able to do. But I did want to come up here and invite you guys, everybody in here, to XRP Cafe and BE Chains event, which will be on March 11th. It'll be live Twitch stream. If you mind, if I share this, it's going to be donation drive for St. Jude. And it's going to be the third donation drive that Pixelic, Robo Club, and XRP Cafe have done, completely beating out each time their set goal by lots. And DS was one of the biggest contributors into donations the last time we had a showcase in that matter.
If I remember well, by the way, Jamie, Expector was the one to reach the goal after, or help reach the goal after 30 seconds. I'm very happy that you're in here as well. It's good to have some serious people of the XRPL on stage.
Yes, definitely. It was Expector, and you guys were pretty big in their bet as well. Rippleton, he was also in there. A lot of big names in the XRPL that did show up. We expect multiple blockchains to be able to showcase there. Free ads. If you guys are open to placing your project out there, you want to do this, there's free ads, submitted to the XRP Cafe by March 7th, no latest. And they might be able to showcase your ad on your project on March 11th.
So I more recently found out about the XRP ledger, and I wasn't aware that there was such a big community growing around it. Are any of you guys building on the actual ledger?
Yeah, that
And
would
what's that
be
experience been?
DS. That would be DS with the Expector. He's building, and he's been building for a long time. You know, it's surprising that not many people have actually fell into the XRPL. But yeah, it's been building a lot. XRP cafes and marketplace. We have on XRP and a couple other places as well that do NFTs that are native to the XRP ledger.
The issue, Noah, was that we only recently had NFTs on the XRP ledger. So it was an amendment called XLS20, without going into much details, that has to be voted by validators that are node runners on the ledger. And it took some time, and everybody was really anxious to get them on. And it's only a couple of months that that native NFTs on the XRPL exist.
And I do want to say this, that the XRPL, the community has been waiting an entire year. A lot of the IOU tokens, a lot of the projects that have been waiting for these NFTs, community has been building around for an entire year for these NFTs to come out. And they're out, and the community is still strong, community is still building, and really glad that you guys were able to put up the space to actually be able to come and speak a little bit more around the community itself.
Noah, one of the people that is in this room is TextRP. He's an interesting guy building an interesting project on the XRPL as well. It would be great to have him up as speaker.
Absolutely. If you want to request, because it's kind of hard for me to find them in the sea of audience members. If he wants to request, he's more than welcome to come up. And DS, you made a point earlier that your opinions are controversial. I don't think there's anything controversial about saying 99% of NFT projects are vaporware, and I don't think there's anything controversial about making that same claim for making that same claim for the rest of the crypto market. That's something that I've been saying since 2018. I mean, I guess you could say 98% now that we're 4 or 5 years out of that previous bear market. Tex XRP, welcome to the stage. But yeah, I don't find anything controversial about that. And you said initially it was NFTs. Are we starting to see DeFi activity, any kind of Web3 gaming activity happening or starting to develop on the XRP ledger?
Yeah, well, there are quite a few projects that are developing games, metaverse-like projects. We chose to build on with Unreal Engine 5, hyper-realistic. I've just been looking into a project that's running on Binance chain. It's called Everdome.io. Not to promote them at all, but they're doing something very similar than we are doing, and their world is on Mars, and ours is more in the real world or on Earth. But I've been looking at what they are doing, and they're doing something amazing. They had a VC round, 10 million. They did their land sales, 18.6 million, all in the past year during very difficult crypto times. So that's something that gives me quite a lot of strength and motivation to go on. We started out just in May last year. We did an IDO on the XRPL. We were able to raise 3.5 million XRP, which is to XRP standards quite a lot. During the Celsius and Celsius and Terra Luna disaster, we did our pre-sale of NFTs on our own platform 1 week before the XLS20 amendment was into place. So we had a little bit of a head start, and we sold the collection completely out, 8,888 NFTs, and we were able to pull in 4.2 million XRP. So I think that from a numbers perspective, we're doing quite well. We're all set, and we keep on building with a team of around 50 people. So yeah.
I want to pause here for a second. Andrew Forte is on the stage. Guys, big shout out to Andrew Forte for putting this space together and getting these awesome guests. He put a lot of hard work into organizing this, and looking forward to the next few hours. So I see Luffy with their hand up. Luffy, if you want to give a quick intro and then share your thoughts, go for it.
Yeah, so hello everyone. Thanks for hosting. Very nice to be here. Thanks for bringing me up. Yeah, so I've been actually researching. I've been in the XRP community, or been researching XRP actually for 7.5 years now. So when I was started there was not really that much that many people in the community. But yeah, I'm an economist, and I'm actually interested in real world use cases for tokenization of assets and how we could use them, enabling real-time payments in the economy. So yeah, thanks for bringing me up, and looking forward to the discussion.
Dexar, and thanks for coming up, Luffy. We appreciate you being here. TexRP, love the name. Give us a quick intro and get in here.
Hi, yeah, thanks for calling me up. I appreciate Dirk giving us those kind words. Yeah, TextRP is actually the world's first Web3 enabled messaging hub powered by the XRP ledger. So when it comes to real use case, this is what we're all about. We are employing NFTs in a way that I don't believe I've seen anywhere else in the space. So our app is a SaaS. It's a messaging hub that consolidates messages, sends messages via almost any channel out there to include messages via the XRP ledger. And these are secure messages. Login is private. So people, when they log into the TextRP app, they experience a seamless messaging experience. And we use NFTs as ways to customize the messaging experience. So they serve as sort of add-ons to the interface, so that if you want to include a specific feature on your texting app, you simply hold a specific NFT for that feature, and that'll enable it on the app. And if you don't want that feature anymore, you can just get rid of that NFT. You can trade it away. You can burn it for extra messaging credits. So we're using the XRP ledger in three specific ways. The first one is because login is done via the Sum wallet. The login is private. It's anonymous. We don't require names, email addresses, credit cards, or any of your personal information to use the messaging app. So that's one way that we use the ledger. The second way we use the ledger is for payments processing. All our payments are done through crypto, and we accept XRP. And in future iterations, we'll be accepting other tokens that meet our liquidity requirements, all XRPL-based tokens. And the third feature, which I kind of spoke about, is the third way we use the XRP ledger is by use of the NFTs. And we use the NFTs, as I discussed earlier, as feature packs. And we actually don't call them NFTs, we call them feature packs, because that's exactly what they do. And we're trying to do away with the word NFT. We feel it's kind of a burned out term. So we're going with what the function does. So we're naming our NFTs by the function that they serve. So I appreciate the time to just give a little bit of this description of what TextRP is doing. But real quick, another really exciting thing that we're doing is our platform allows integration of other NFT collections into our app. So we're actually partnered up with a number of other NFT projects. We got the Wild Stacks, Universe, we got Xbot, we got Xclowns, we got so many. I'm starting to forget them all, but they're just hopping on board because they're seeing that our platform can actually add more utility to their existing collections by incorporating them into our messaging platform. And we're really excited about that. I think we're going to have a whole new wave of utility coming down the pike for 2023 and 2024 for TextRP.
And XRP, by the way, Noah, is one of the projects that will use our backend marketplace. Actually, it's not a marketplace. We developed Forex Spectre, e-commerce, a crypto-enabled e-commerce platform similar to Shopify, but fully customizable, no code. And TextRP will be one of the first to use it. We have, by the way, our friend the Elephant Man Rippled in here as well. If anybody can give you correct, interesting facts about the XRP ledger, it is him. So, Chris, happy to have you here and hope you're coming up as a speaker.
Hey, Dirk, one more thing. I just wanted to say, to speak to that marketplace integration. Yeah, we're really excited about that. Our feature packs, we feel like, we're not actually competing with any other NFT project out there, because we're not an art based, we're not community based, we're actually a feature based. And so we've had our challenges in finding the right niche when it comes to how we are going to list and offer up our feature packs. And that's why we found the X-Spectre private marketplace solution to be a best fit for us.
Guys, I'd imagine that so first of all, it's great to hear that there's this new ecosystem where people are building and innovating on. I'd imagine that it's still a very small percentage of the industry. So people that are bullish could still get that first mover's advantage and the rewards that come with it by diving in. You guys have taken that. To building your own applications. How easy is it for me to get over to the XRP ledger and start playing around with the different dApps and potentially build my own protocol? Are there proprietary bridges that allow people to go from EVM compatible chains to the XRP ledger, or is the only way to do this through a centralized entity like Binance?
No, of course not. So I will withhold about the purely technical things. Again, we have Rippleton here. We have your bro Quincy, who is also an interesting developer in here. I will leave that up to them. However, there are two important things. It's not an EVM chain, and we don't have smart contracts. However, there are lots of other advantages. Of course, the speed and the low or close to zero gas fees and many other things. But for the technical aspects, I really would be happy to have Quincy or Chris up here.
Well, Quincy or Chris, if you guys want to come up, you're more than welcome. I'll rephrase my question. How do I get on to the XRP ledger? Where do I start?
Hey, I want to start. I can probably steer you one of many directions, actually. I actually can get XRP through decentralized channels using the WAN chain cross-bridge. So that's one way I acquire XRP. Another way is directly from the Sum app. You can now onboard with XRP directly with the Sum app. Just purchase with a credit card, and you'll have it there in your Sum wallet. So I'm pretty sure there's other methods as well, but those are the two main ones that I'm familiar with and use.
Yeah, well, Noah, probably the most easiest thing is to get a Zum app. Zum is XUMM. It's the most important wallet to get connected on the XRPL ecosystem.
Okay, noted on both of those points. What is, and I know that you guys might not be the right ones to answer this question, but what is the future vision for XRP Ledger? Are they trying to enable smart contract development eventually, or Jamie, go for it?
Hey, if we can we get Bet up here? The Bet is very technical, and he will definitely hit every little hammer that you need with the nail.
Hey, man, yeah, no doubt. I'm happy to just request to come up, guys, because it's hard for me to scroll.
Hey, Bet, can you go ahead and request to come up here so you can go ahead and enlighten this community here?
Yeah, so in terms of the future vision that you mentioned, you basically what is the future vision of XRP? So if we compare that to the internet and also the stated goal of Ripple, which is basically one entity that is using the XRP ledger and this whole decentralized ecosystem, right? It's basically to move money as fast as information does today in the internet, right? And that's quite fast. That's quite a lot of money packets that will be moving around in the future, right? And yeah, a lot of very fast payments, a lot of payments, micro payments, to really enable a really seamless experience when you move money from A to B around the world. So basically 3 to 5 second settlement time from A to B in a decentralized manner without middlemen. Yeah, that's basically the vision.
Well, no, I will help you guys out.
Can I say one thing real quick?
Yeah, yeah, with pleasure.
Yeah, one thing that I see get completely overlooked, and in my opinion, it's like the actual magic of the XRPL, is essentially the rippling algorithm that allows you to maximize liquidity between assets. So the best way I like to describe it, or at least when I talk to different people in like financing or banking or whatever, is in traditional finance and even in certain aspects of DeFi, you need to set up liquidity pools to allow people to engage with different assets in terms of being able to buy, sell, exchange, and being able to have a fair means of equitable value be able to be transferred between the two pools. XRP has an algorithm that allows you to be able to do this without any liquidity pools. So whenever you set up a liquidity pool, there's an opportunity cost in which you have some amount of capital in that pool that's not making money because it's providing capital to the pool. And essentially, you don't necessarily need to do that in any capacity because the rippling algorithm allows for that means of transfer between different assets seamlessly through the algorithm rather than through a set of pools all over the place. So if you're an exchange, you don't necessarily need to set up a ton of liquidity pools in order to be able to maintain the exchange between different assets. You have a pretty advanced algorithm that allows you to do that. And with those liquidity pools, there's a huge opportunity cost that's lost simply because you have all this capital locked up and sitting basically. And don't get me wrong, like you may be making fees off the pool and whatnot, but there's a large amount of capital that's locked up that is essentially not working as much as it could be. Where on the XRP ledger, you don't necessarily have that same problem. You can essentially use the algorithm or use the network in order to facilitate that need between exchanging assets.
Beautifully broken down, man. Thank you.
He thinks even faster than he speaks.
I can only imagine. XRP Queen, go for it.
Hi, just to carry on about what you were saying about transferring money, just to give you an idea. So XRP can currently process about 1,500 transactions per second. If you compare it to Visa, for example, they can do 24,000 per second. So we are getting there. We are fast. Like Bitcoin can do, I think, 7 transactions per second, and Ethereum's about 20. So just to give you an idea, that's why so many banks are using Ripple already in different countries, because there's no competition. We are the best. We are the fastest.
So many banks are using Ripple to send payments, to settle payments. I've never really understood this. Taking a step back from the XRP ledger and just thinking about the Ripple network and its value prop, I've never understood what exactly banks are using Ripple for, and I've also never particularly understood the point of the token. I'm not sure if
I could give you an idea of what it's for. So let's say I'm a bank in the United States and you're a bank in Japan. I use dollars, you use Japanese yen. It'd be quite a pain in the ass for us to continuously be moving in and out of each other's currency just to be able to engage and trade with each other. XRP allows you to do that trade without actually having to go through the steps to be able to engage and trade with each other. That's essentially the whole point. So instead, and you can do this not just with currencies, but you can do this with anything. So the idea is that you can have a global means of exchange between different parties without these different parties having to jump into the local means of exchange, being that fiat currency in that local jurisdiction. And that's it only gets compounded. It only gets compounded for every single different party that's involved. So if you have one person using dollars, one person using yen, one person using pesos, one person using euros, 10 different people using 10 different currencies, it becomes incredibly difficult to conduct trade between each other. XRP just maximizes the means in terms of being able to allow me to be able to use US dollars to be able to engage with somebody with Japanese yen by having those dollars be able to move through the network into yen using the rippling algorithm. Does that make sense? So you can have all these different parties be able to engage with each other without essentially having to go through hoops to be able to engage with each other because of that.
Yeah, so because of the rippling algorithm, they're able to go from one fiat currency to the other without having the headache that they would through a traditional way of, through like a traditional means of exchanging fiat.
It saves a lot of time and it saves a lot of money, as well as it basically allows for, what's it called? There's a certain cost in the fluctuation in the currency that isn't normally thought about from a retail perspective, but in order to move that money, it takes a long time. If I wanted to move $20 million worth of US dollars into Japanese yen, it may take a day or two. And the fluctuating valuation between those two currencies could change, in which I could essentially lose some amount of value in doing that. So part of the fact that it being quick and part of the fact in terms of me not having to go through those extra steps, i.e. going through multiple different parties to be able to make that exchange, I'm able to essentially save whatever risk in cost I would have had in terms of the fluctuating value, as well as be able to just participate with the person I want to participate with without going through additional parties to do so.
I think the risk that you mean, Quincy, I think that's the floating exchange rate risk. Is that possible?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so essentially enables cross-border payments, and it is changing the way institutions make and receive payments. So it's eliminating pre-funding requirements, faster payments regardless of funding source and destination. And
I'd say you can get off. I'd say you can even go away from the payments, and you can take any means of capital, any means of value can be used just as liquid as cash can be. So I could take $50 million worth of milk derivatives and make a $50 million Japanese yen payment to you without essentially going through the process of liquidating those derivatives through multiple different parties. I could use any amount of value to do that. Doesn't matter if it's currencies, doesn't matter if it's stocks, bonds, whatever, milk derivatives, it doesn't matter what it is. Anything is just as liquid as cash.
And that's I think the point, right? That's actually the beauty. So that the interoperability between everything, right? It doesn't really matter what is at A, right? It doesn't really matter what is at B, but XRP is just the bridge between, right? And that's actually a killer use case, right? If you think about it, interoperability between derivatives, stocks, bonds, as Quincy just mentioned, right? That's massive, right? So you can pay anything to everything else, right? And that's I think very, very interesting, right? So the interoperability part is really the magic stuff, I think.
Mm-hmm. And then Noah, we come, of course, if I may, to the accusation of the most non-XRP familiar people. Well, it's a banker's coin. Well, and that's my non-technical experience. I'm very happy if it would be a banker's coin, because all banks that I interact with crypto in my real life, they kick me out no matter how good a client I am. So if you ask me is it an advantage that banks are using the XRP or XRP or ODL, I think it's a good thing in the long run, because completely ignoring the current financial system is totally useless, is utter nonsense.
Exactly. So I think from a strategic point, it is very important to have a long-term vision in this process. And comparing that to the Bitcoin maximalists, I don't mean to call anyone names here, but the Bitcoiners basically have the attitude of down with the banks, down with the government, right? Well, that's not going to happen, right? Before that happens, the tanks are going to roll out, right? They are the guys who have the weapons, right? So basically, from a strategic standpoint, actually Ripple did a very good job, right, to work with the system and to really go into those banking infrastructures and to really have this revolution coming from within, right? Because it's basically an offer that they cannot refuse, right? They're saving, I think, like 60 to 80% per transaction. It's, I think, like 1,000 times, more than 1,000 times faster than the current system, right? It's decentralized, which basically means it reduces single point of failure risks, etc., right? So I think strategically very well done to really connect the repositories of value, and those are the banks, right? I mean, that's just common sense, right?
Mm-hmm. So, given I'm gonna take everything that Quincy is so eloquently broken down for us as accurate, for the sake of the argument, and not to say that I don't think it's accurate. I don't know, but for the sake of the argument, let's say everything that Quincy says is correct. The value prop in that case is clear, at least to a novice like me, when it comes to how these institutional transactions and transactions between countries happen. Quincy, if you don't mind breaking down now, what is the purpose of the XRP token? Where does it fit?
So the purpose of the XRP token, it basically just comes down to this. For every asset that's listed on the network, XRP is the most liquid asset in order for it to be paired with, or in order for it to be in denominations with. So what ends up happening is, instead of having, like I said, the liquidity pools, instead of having all these different assets paired up with each other, they all get paired up with XRP and then move through XRP to be able to access each other. So the whole point of XRP is essentially have every asset paired up with it, so it can be used as a means of liquidity between other assets, as opposed to a bunch of individual assets paired up with each other independently. So look at it this way. You have 100 apps, right? Or 100 tokens, right? You could sit there and go, go, well, token A can go with token B and token C can go with token D and have all these different batches. Or you could take all 100 of them, pair them up with XRP, and then each one to get from one to the other moves through XRP to get to the other one. Now you essentially have one simple means of capital to pair up all your assets with to allow you to be able to move between assets rather than a zillion different connections between a zillion different assets.
Again, beautifully put. And one more question, and then I want to let Andrew Forte come in and talk about, or rather ask about the lawsuit and the SEC and all that's going on that end. But one more question. I've also heard oftentimes that the allocation of the allocation of XRP is super centralized, and it kind of ties into the SEC lawsuit, but a lot of it was dumped by the inner circle to buy things like jets. And again, this is all just FUD that I hear. And I'm curious, let's say jets for the sake of the argument. It was used to fund lavish lifestyle.
I paid my jet.
Hold on.
I paid my jet myself.
No, hold on. So I just want to know, guys, about the centralization of the token. And I guess maybe dive into the FUD a bit. We don't need to entertain it too much. And then Andrew Forte is going to come in with the SEC stuff.
Yeah, so one thing that you all need to consider in all regards is there's three levels of decentralization. There's decentralization of the network, decentralization of the token, and decentralization of the use of the network. You know, obviously people criticize Ripple for being one of the major uses of the XRP ledger. So people, point is that decentralized. People also criticize, there's so much of the token allocated in this regard. There's a question to be there. Now, the biggest thing in my opinion is it all comes down to how the network is decentralized, and there are different incentives for that to be the case. Usually the argument of, that so many of the tokens held into one wallet or one set of wallets is typically a valid argument on proof of stake networks, simply based on the fact that the total amount of tokens that are allocated will determine who potentially can make the most stake. It's not the case on XRP. XRP is, there's no incentive for any, there is no proof of stake incentive, and actually the only incentive to run a validator is to essentially use the network for whatever your use case is. Now, obviously, you may go into, well, what about the price? Well, it comes down to, if your notion is they have so much of the token they can dump on it and it's going to affect the price, the entire premise of how the network operates is entirely irrespective of what the price could be. The price could be a penny or the price could be $1,000. It doesn't change what the network can be used for. Now, what you should be focused on is the volatility, because that's essentially going to affect how people use the network. But in terms of them dumping all the tokens and it affecting the price, them dumping the tokens doesn't make the network any less or any more centralized. And them holding all the tokens doesn't actually have any impact on how you can use the network. If anything, it just gives them the biggest opportunity to provide liquidity, really. And if you want to criticize that on the standpoint of, well, one institution or one entity is controlling the access to this network, I'd say that's pretty much it's a bit of a fair statement to make, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily affect the use of the network in any regard. Now, this is a very emphasized statement in proof of stake networks, because obviously the more you stake, the more control you can have over the nodes and whatnot. But XRP is not a proof of stake network, so that same criticism isn't levied the same way, or at least with the same weight. And yeah, that's basically the biggest thing. Now, if you obviously feel bad about, they may dump the tokens, that's kind of how you feel. But in terms of how any person who may want to use the network, in terms of they're using the network, anyone holding any amount of tokens has no effect on that, outside of them having a greater opportunity to provide liquidity.
Got it. Okay, so the token being centralized because of the way the network is run has nothing to do with the integrity of the network, from what I'm gathering, and it doesn't really matter that a few entities hold all the tokens, because at the end of the day, the purpose of the XRP token is to provide liquidity through these cross-border and cross-institutional transactions.
Precisely. Now, if you want to get into the notion of XRP or of Ripple being the primary source of access to the XRP network on an institutional scale, that's a bigger criticism you can levy, because it's almost like monopolizing the network solely based off your access to it because you created it. And I think that's a criticism that's levied towards every founder organization ever, because obviously if you built the network, you have the easiest means of being able to thrive off the network, and obviously that gives yourself an advantage. So if you do want to criticize Ripple on that front, you can. But in regards to the total amount of tokens that are allocated to an individual, it doesn't really mean much. at least from a network integrity standpoint.
Right on. TextRP, go for it, man. I'm hugging Mike.
I just wanted to add a little to that. I know that the primary, I guess originally the purpose or the main value proposition of the XRP ledger is for cross-border payments. But I'd like to add, as a developer on the ledger, that cross-border payments are kind of the least of my concerns is building on the XRP ledger. It's an open source network, meaning that use cases kind of just come as one can imagine. And through the XRP Ledger's amendment process, we've added NFT capabilities, and then I don't know if it's been spoken of before, but we've got a hooks amendment, which will enable some sort of smart contract type capabilities. And on top of that, we've got these side chains which are being developed. So I believe smart contracts will be coming to the XRP Ledger soon as those technologies are developed. But the use cases are growing and expanding beyond cross-border payments, in my opinion.
And again, Noah, the difference between Ripple as a company, XRP as a coin, and the XRP ledger as the network where we built on, or the chain where we built on, is a very big, important thing, and lots of people don't seem to get it. We, for example, with Expector, we are running a full history node, validator nodes. I see other validator node runners in here as well. We have nothing to do with Ripple. I may sympathize with them regarding the lawsuit, because I think it's important for crypto. However, me building as a developer or as a project on the XRPL, I have no business at all, no link, nothing with Ripple, zero.
So on that note, Andrew Forte, do you want to come in, grab the mic? By the way, Andrew Forte I'm going to bring him up as a co-host at one point during the course of this broadcast. He should be a co-host up here. But do you want to come in with the SEC lawsuit and the sentiment and all the intricacies and details that come along with that?
For sure. No, before I begin, though, guys, it's been a great space. Appreciate all you guys showing up. The community obviously makes this space. It's not just us up here. It's the community that shows up. And the speakers really drive the space forward to making sure it's really objective and obviously fun for everyone. I know if you could, or I believe Donut on the account, please bring up Jenna. She's been waiting patiently down there before we get started.
I don't see her requested.
It's there's a crown next to her name, then it should be a J. I believe, Jenna, if you're not requesting, please do request.
I just sent her a speaker invite.
Perfect. Thanks, Donut. Yeah, guys, so obviously I believe addressing the elephant in the room is going to be super important moving forward. I think that'll be a good conversation moving forward. I guess I'll ask this to the panel overall. What's kind of each of your input on obviously the SEC lawsuit with Ripple, and what's kind of the community sentiment and obviously your take on this moving forward? Obviously, it's something that hasn't been, it's been gone on for a long duration of time. But what's kind of your guys' opinion and the overall sentiment of the community, of the XRP community within the lawsuit of SEC versus Ripple?
Well, the thing is that you learn to get patient. That's probably the main thing. And the other thing is what I already said. It's not about the Ripple SEC case. It's about crypto and government instances that don't deliver us legal frameworks, not knowing what to do. I've consulted 20 lawyers before I started the project. I'm from Belgium in Europe. I live in Luxembourg. Luxembourg government promotes blockchain technology, but if you do one bank transfer, they throw you out. We went to Switzerland. Very complicated, expensive process. And every lawyer that you meet says something different. So therefore, the whole Howey testing and the security thing, I think it's mainly a US issue, but it's very important for everybody in crypto.
Thanks, yes. Before I continue, I want to preface, though, I am an investor of XRP. Obviously, nothing here is financial advice, but myself, my team, or the panelists. I will preface, as I said, I am invested in XRP, so obviously my standpoint can be biased at times, but this is not FUD by me. This is kind of, just more so general counsel and objective conversations. But yes, I appreciate that. Jenna, your hand's up. Welcome to the stage, by the way.
Thank you so much for having me. And hi, all my friends that are up here. This is an awesome crew. I was just waiting until, it filled up before I made my grand entrance. No, so with the SEC case, like DS said, it teaches you patience, but that's why I got more bullish on XRP, because I was like, man, I remember when Tesla was getting sued by the SEC and everybody dumped, and it would have been a great opportunity. And even if you don't like Ripple, the company, or the currency XRP, what they're doing for the whole space is super important, right? Like, they're fighting a battle for all of us. And I think that the SEC is honestly just trying to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. But I think, and I've said this since the beginning, that I feel like this is intentional, that they're going to lose a battle just to win a war on crypto, is kind of how I feel. But I feel really, really good about the case. And whether, there's a ruling, whether we end up in the Supreme Court, I just feel really good about it, and I'm happy with the bags that I hold. So I am either sinking with the ship or going to the moon, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to the moon.
And just to add to that, it's called regulation by enforcement. So instead of actually designing legislation and rules, clear-cut rules, because that takes time and people can test that. Bill Hughes was on earlier this week, or was it last week? Oh man, my memory's so foggy. But he broke down the SEC's point of departure: regulation by enforcement. So pick a case that you think you're going to win, and just overzealously pursue it. And if you do win, the rest of the industry, at least in the US, is going to get scared and they won't break the rule. So that's what you see with Kraken, for example. That's what you're seeing with XRP. Kraken was probably just like, it's not worth the money. I have no idea how much money the XRP founders and team have spent on this lawsuit.
It's like over 100 million.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So it is interesting. And we definitely talk about the United States point of departure on enforcement, or sorry, regulation by enforcement, rather than, building a framework such as Europe's MiCA. But I would like to see some sort of result with XRP over the next year, because I think regardless of whether you like Ripple or not, the result is going to be you want them to win. Even if you hate Ripple, you want them to win.
For sure, but that's something that we have to deal with, and I don't like to get into tribalism at all, because what we are building is a metaverse project and will become fully chain agnostic, integrating other chains and stuff. So, but I feel with my experience, previous experience as a lawyer, that there is injustice, and hearing all the ETH and the Bitcoin maxis always trashing XRP. You better think twice, and I say this with love, because if Ripple loses, we're all fucked. 99.9% of all crypto is a security, or will be.
Yes, on that thought, I got to ask an interjector, right? So obviously, tribalism sucks. I think anyone that believes in tribalism, I think you got to get ahead with the times. But I will ask, though, obviously, Library, to my extent, did lose their case, or some sort of lost something, which is not great for the space at scale. But yes, this question I'll ask you, then the rest of the panelists can jump in here if they feel the need to. How does Library losing and being declared what they were declared as a security, I believe, affect Ripple and the rest of the space moving forward?
Well, there are two different cases. I have to admit that I wasn't very happy when I saw the outcome. And as a lawyer, or previous lawyer, I should probably know better. But if you look at what Library did, and they were classified as a security, I've been consulting lots of lawyers. I have a legal opinion that everything we launch is not a security. However, you never know how the SEC thinks about it. And if I see what Expector was able to get in by selling tokens, well, it was probably about 20 times more than Library did. So I have to be worried.
Guys, I have a bit of a controversial opinion. Can you confirm you are listening? Because I spoke before, and I don't know if people were listening. I had some problems in the mic.
You're good. Okay. You're good.
Now we can hear you, man.
But I actually would argue even the other way around. Like, I do believe there is kind of political theater going on with the SEC lawsuit, especially because they have chosen XRP for a reason. They have chosen actually Ripple, the company, as a reason, because if the banks are to use XRP as a bridge currency, therefore we need XRP to be regulated, and we need this very fast. if they're programming to go full digital by 2025, I'm fully convinced that there is a very good reason why they have chosen Ripple. Like, you have people from inside Ripple, like you have Rose Rios that has signed the $100 bill, for example, from the US Treasury. And it would be so much of a coincidence that they would pick Ripple and not other currencies for doing this purpose.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you, Edo. So if Ripple and if XRP actually really does the things that they're actually set out to do, you would apply the highest amount of scrutiny, right? I mean, that's a little unfortunate for us as retail holders, right? But I think it's, after all, it is actually a good thing, right? Because actually, if that all is done, then XRP is the only currency or the only asset worldwide, basically, with regulatory clarity in the US, right? And that alone means a lot. Like that's
and
positive.
there is actually one thing that every community agrees with. Doesn't matter if you are from the XRP community, doesn't matter if you are Bitcoin maximalist or anything else, is that nobody thinks the SEC is actually there to protect investors. And we all see that the SEC has done several damages for the US as a country, and like lots of startups are actually leaving the US. And I speak as someone who is inside the project, which is, for example, the XRP Healthcare, which is built on the UK. And there is a reason for that. And several other companies are choosing to move away from the US. For I see like the SEC is a very big of a shame, and I think everyone can agree with that.
Yeah, that's well put, right? So it reveals a lot of things, right? So actually, all the time, the Bitcoin maximalists, actually, in Ethereum, a lot of people, they have said, well, down with the banks, down with the government. We're working against the government. We don't want control. We want to be free, etc. Right? Ripple is exactly doing that, right? There are not a lot of Bitcoin people who are doing that, right? And that's, I think, a very important thing, a very, very revealing thing of how actually the government works, who they are protecting and who they are not protecting. When they are lying, I think that's basically pretty obvious. When they're saying they're here to protect the retail investors, well, we all know by now what that means, right? When they say come in and talk, well, don't do it, right? I mean, that's gonna be a problem. Yeah, and if they're so I think that's a very good thing to have a really also a betterment of how actually government works, right? To hold people accountable. So I think that's a very revealing thing.
Well, there should be a framework to protect investors, because the advantage of crypto is that everybody becomes a trader and can make money. The disadvantage is that everybody thinks they are a trader and they will lose money. If somebody wins, somebody loses, and that's something that most of us forget.
Yes, the thing is, Gary Gensler, if you ask Gary Gensler, the laws are clear, right? Even though all of us in the industry know the laws are not clear, there are no laws. So basically that's it, right? But from his perspective, who is he protecting and who makes money, right? So the banks are making a lot of money by being the middleman, right? They're making a lot of money by being in the middle of those transactions and to really siphon off those fees, right? And that actually, if Ripple and if XRP is successful, that actually turns the whole business model around, right? They're not going to be able to make a lot of money on fees, right? Because there are basically none, right? So I think that's one reason why they are not easily having that. Another thing is control, right? The beauty of the XRP ledger is actually that no one controls it. So as David Schwartz stated, the best incentive is no incentive. There is no party that controls it. That's not interesting for bankers, right? I mean, bankers have a little bit of a complexity issue in terms of control, right? So they want to control those things, but they cannot do it. So I can see why they are stalling the process, but at the end of the day, they cannot stop it, in my opinion.
Yes, a question for you, because I feel like you're more well versed on this question. Obviously, being an attorney and whatnot. Do you feel like if XRP for whatever case /Ripple was to be labeled as a security, the word that everyone's usually afraid of, it's still possible that XRP /Ripple can continue forward though, right? Despite being labeled as a security.
No, it's. I think that's impossible. They won't stop the company Ripple from what they're doing. The coin is what it is, and the XRP ledger is completely separate from it. So, me building on the XRPL, it would be strange to say I couldn't care less, because of course I do, but it wouldn't affect the ones that are building on the XRP ledger. And regarding the lawsuit, it's been a while since I've practiced law, and it wasn't in the United States, of course. Having mighty opponents like government agencies is very unpleasant, of course, because they have unlimited possibilities of going on. However, they probably picked the wrong one, because Ripple is doing quite well. And I don't know. I think that if there would be a possible settlement, that Mr. Garlinghouse would be happy to take it if it wasn't deemed a security, and they would gladly pay tens and maybe hundreds of millions to get that. So I think that they're very convinced about their point of view, and that they will go to the end. And for Mr. Gensler, it will be a knee fall, probably doing a settlement. However, probably with I disagree with some of us here. I don't think that it will have a huge effect on XRP price.
You don't think a loss is going to have a huge effect on the price? A loss in the lawsuit?
A loss maybe, a win maybe. I think that people overestimate it in both ways.
Oh, I don't know, man. I respectfully disagree. I think even in a bear market, you're going to see a nice wick in one direction or the other based on the result. And in a bull market, it's going to be even crazier. But we'll see.
I would even argue as well, like DS and Noah, and I saw your Quincy had his hand up as well, or had his mic unmuted. I would say that a loss would be more detrimental to the space at scale than a would be positive for the space at scale. So if Ripple XRP wins, I think the space is super excited. The token does what it does. I'm not sure what that means, but it does what it does. But if it was to lose for whatever case, I feel like the space is going to harp on this for the next 3-4 months, opposed to if it wins, everyone's happy for 24 hours, 40 hours, on to the next thing. But a loss would be more detrimental than it would be positive. Quincy, you had your mic unmuted.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to sort of emphasize where I think you may end up seeing some short-term volatility based off the lawsuit, but this whole notion of like seeing instant utility and like just, I don't know, $1 trillion worth of value instantly put onto the network just because of the lawsuit isn't really what's going to happen. I think what you're going to end up seeing is you'll see a lag. I see tons of people who are sitting on the sidelines who don't want to touch on any of these digital assets. They'll get into certain DLT technologies, but they don't really get too involved with a lot of these assets because they're too afraid what that may be. Now, I do think some regulatory clarity will allow them to start entering into the space, but I don't think it's like an overnight thing. I think you'll start seeing a gradual ramp up in the usage over time, of course. I just don't know if that's going to look like a giant green candle, or if it's just going to look like you're seeing an increase in the overall amount of growth in the network. So let's say on average, the network was growing 20% every few months. Now it's growing 30% or something like that. And maybe it may speed up down the line. But I think people focus too much on like what retail's doing as opposed to like what's going to actually drive adoption. And I do think the lawsuit will have an effect. It just may not be as direct as people think it is. And I think part of that just comes down to there are a lot of people sitting around waiting for something to happen. But when something does happen, win or lose, it's just going to impact how people move from there. And obviously, if there's a win, you're going to see more people come onto the network. I just think you're going to see them come onto the network over time.
So go ahead, Edo, and I'll jump in after.
Yeah, man, I was listening to what the people said, and I agree with some stuff. I disagree with other. I just think we're missing the whole point here, which is basically the fact that the lawsuit is going to end and that we're going to know the outcome is not so much about what retail investors like us like we're gonna put small money, it's gonna turn in. It's actually about the utility case that comes with being fully regulated, and that is actually what opens the door for the big institutions to come in. And that's why I believe the price is actually going to go up, because the price is going to be drive in by actually utility case, and when we have the clarity that therefore the institution is going to in, and it's not like going up or going down just because speculation, and that can happen very fast. So people might not even be able to press the buy button because of institutional money. Remember, not retail investors. I'm talking here about banks and big financial institutions.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point, and very often we've seen, especially in this industry, that the price goes up and down on speculation over utility. So, sure, the utility might not just because they win the lawsuit doesn't mean there's going to be all this utility coming right out of the barn. But people are going to speculate that, okay, now Ripple can build freely. Now they're not constrained by this very expensive lawsuit. And I think the price will probably preclude the actual adoption that everyone's anticipating.
Well, as a project, one of the things that is 100% true is that if lots of projects that get VC money in, buying OTC tokens or whatever, if I ask that to whatever VC, how good the project may be, if they see it's built on the XRPL, and the token is linked with XRP, inevitably, they are a little bit more afraid or cautious.
Certainly agree. Andrew Forte, back to you for a few.
Guys, I do have to head out soon, but I do appreciate everyone showing up today. The community showing up. It's been an awesome conversation. I hope it keeps to continue. I will say, kind of to what Noah really said there, I think narrative and speculation is super, super important. Most of this space is surrounded by culture, narrative, and speculation. I think as long as those things at scale and in the macro are really, really positive, I feel like the space is going to thrive forward. So everyone keep up the great work. And obviously the FUD will continue to happen, especially to the Ripple XRP case. But I think as long as the community in the micro is super, super connected and everyone decides to, stay strong and kind of, coincide with each other regardless of what their investment and their financials are, I feel like we're gonna win long term.
And regarding the people that are interested in looking at the XRPL community or the XRP community, I would definitely give them the advice, take a close look, because there are some really nice, interesting projects building on the XRP ledger.
So do you guys ever think that, a lot of layer ones, for example, have built out their own version of an EVM just because that's the OG and it promotes the transferring of a lot of liquidity from Ethereum and from other EVM compatible chains. So do you think that when Ripple does somehow try to enable smart contracts, it'll be in the form of an EVM sidechain?
Yeah, they already have federated sidechains that are EVM compatible. I'm pretty sure they're in test right now, I'm pretty sure they're in test right now, maybe in production. But
yeah, because I know that we've seen the liquidity incentive route not particularly be the best way to, or rather, not particularly be the most sustainable way to invite people over, but I do think a hybrid approach that incorporates liquidity incentives, especially in the form of DeFi protocols, or at least certified forks that everyone is familiar with, is a great route to take to get that initial user adoption, or at least capture some of that market share that's currently on EVM compatible chains. But again, I'm just like speculating, brainstorming, shooting out ideas.
I think there's too much of a comparison between XRP and EVM compatible chains. Like, you guys are looking at the benefits of the EVM chains and going, why doesn't XRP have that? But XRP has a monopoly on liquidity between assets because of that rippling algorithm. So XRP has something the other chains don't have. And it's not that it needs smart contracts. Yeah, it'd be great for that to be the case. But you got to look at XRP. It's a derivatives platform. It's entirely predicated on being able to list assets and exchange with them. No other chain has the ability to do that with ease except for XRP. So yeah, there's the trade-off of not having the EVM compatibility or the smart contract associated with that. And yeah, there may be an element of federated sidechains that allow for that, but it's still not going to allow for the same level of functionality that you see in EVM chains. Actually, about a little less than a year ago, I actually spoke with some Ripple employees about this. It had something to do with some other projects I was associated with. The biggest thing is when you set up these side chains are essentially your own private chain. And the idea is that you can build applications, your own private applications that can interact with the XRP ledger. So let's say you wanted to build, I don't know, some app or whatever, some internal app. You would set up your own federators or your own validators. You would set up essentially your own chain and even use Solidity to be able to build on that chain. And then essentially the benefit of that is being able to export value from that private chain onto the main network to be able to exchange value with other participants. Because like I said, that's the premise of the network. So I think it's like kind of funny that we focus on like the positives of the EVM while completely missing the deficit of the fact that every other EVM chain has a bunch of liquidity pools and a bunch of dexes and a bunch of issues in terms of managing those pools and managing those dexes, where XRP does not. And I think that's part of the biggest thing that makes XRP great in that regard, because it's able to do something most of these other networks can't do. I just think we always phrase it as a deficit because it doesn't have smart contracts.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. And for me, it's attracting new users, right? How do you capture, and you can make the argument that the majority of users, the majority of people on Earth aren't even invested in crypto, so it's still early. But how do we capture some of those crypto users that are cozy on EVM compatible chains and bring them onto the XRP, in this example, the XRP EVM compatible chain, so they see the true potential of the network, and then they're inclined to potentially bridge over or move their funds over to the main ledger. So I mean, you kind of broke that down. That's kind of the I don't see it as a deficit. I more so see it as a strategy for attracting new users. And it would be interesting to see like a high performing Forex trading application on XRP, since you did say there's so much liquidity between XRP and fiat assets or fiat currencies.
Yeah, one thing that I feel like I see a lot in the crypto space that I find a tiny bit annoying is these technologies are different protocols, and the protocol, the application, and the user are very much separated. That's like almost like saying, yeah, we have Ubuntu, we have Red Hat, but how do we get more Debian Linux users? It's like, well, maybe certain applications or certain servers run Debian, run Ubuntu, run whatever, but the users typically come from the application that are using these servers or / technologies. So you're not going to get users just from arbitrarily telling people, look how great XRP is. You're going to get users from some new exchange running on XRP and being able to operate faster, cheaper, and better than other exchanges, and then essentially being able to acquisition users to that exchange that use that network. And so it'll be like that with every network, whether it's applications, whether it's different businesses. You're going to get more users from the next Facebook than you are from trying to get a bunch of investors to pile in on a network.
So guys, revisiting a previous question that I asked, but we're at almost 700 people in here now, and a lot of new audience members have joined. If someone is listening to this broadcast and they're at the very least curious and they want to explore the XRP ledger, what are the first steps?
Check Expecto.
I was going to say, you should go straight to the documentation that is provided on the xrpl.org. It explains everything in painstaking detail, everything. Hooks, side chains, rippling, possible use cases, everything. And it's straight from the developer's mouth, so there's really nothing to contest about it. Now, I understand it may be a little bit of a difficult read, but if you can painfully make it through that, you will be more educated than anybody else here. And that's where I get my information from. So.
Beautiful. Thank you. Let's go to Edo and then Luffy.
Yeah, I encourage everyone who is actually getting curious about XRP also to look what he said, to look on the XRPL and the documents that are provided online, but also to engage with the XRP community. I think one of the greatest assets of XRP is actually the community, and it's the people who are so passionate about this project and people who are actually able to read between the lines. You have people who do an amazing job on a daily basis. Many of them are on this space, actually. Many of them don't have that many followers as they deserve, and I know many of them who are listening this message now, they are here on this space. So I definitely encourage everyone to actually give a follow even to smaller accounts and interact with people. So I'm sure you can learn a lot with the XRP community. And it's, of course, always do your own research. Don't trust a word of what anybody else is saying, but grab some pieces of information and go digging, and you're going to get the truth.
Right on. Luffy, go for it.
Yeah, so that was very well said, like Edo said, and also Quincy stated. So it's really important to do your own research, and you can use the documentation that is available. There's everything you need for your own reading. Yeah, make up your own mind, and don't listen to anyone who says, yeah, XRP is better than anything else. We just came to our own conclusions, so we would like you to do your own research and come to yours. And also to base your investment decisions and also your decisions on sound fundamentals, right? To really have those metrics applied to certain protocols where you can compare different protocols. For example, what is the transactions per second? What is the degree of decentralization? What are the partnerships? How is it scalable, right? How much energy does it use, right? Those sorts of things, right? To have a verifiably and objective measurement of different protocols, right, where you can compare it and then come to your own conclusion. And I think the XRP community is here to help if you need anything. If you want some questions or if you want questions answered, yeah, just give us a message, no problem.
So the resources are there. I'm assuming there must be YouTube videos as well for visual learners. I wanted to swing back really quick to the SEC case. I know we've beaten it with the horse, just like the rest of the industry. But what happens, and then this is probably a question for Quincy or anyone else that might have an answer, but what happens if XRP loses the lawsuit? Does that mean they have to cease and desist, or can they continue to innovate and build this, again, cross-border, institution to institution payment rail?
So let me hop in here for a second. And as someone who's actively building on the XTC network, this isn't just an XRP question. This is a broader regulatory question. I'm very much of the mind of if XRP or Ripple loses this lawsuit over XRP, it's essentially going to set the stage for what's going to come next in terms of regulation. Now, I don't know which would actually be better for regulation, because there is an element of more formal regulation being put forth due to a new set of rules or a new set of guidelines or even a new agency that's meant to regulate these assets. Whatever that may be, that could potentially be a positive thing. But on the opposite end, there could also be an element of, if they do win the lawsuit, is there an aspect of they get some level of clarity because of this lawsuit while everything else is left ambiguous? We're not entirely sure. Now, it can go either way, where the lawsuit winning is good, the lawsuit winning is bad, lawsuit losing is good, lawsuit losing is bad. It depends on what the result is. And I think we shouldn't be focusing on win or lose. We need to be focusing on what is the result that's going to set the standard for the rest of the space. Obviously, I have a bit of an interesting perspective being a part of being associated with another project, but even looking from the outside in and seeing what's happening with Ripple, it's going to set the stage for what's going to happen with the projects I'm associated with too. And it's not just them winning or losing, like I stated, it's about what is the tangible outcome that comes from that. That's really going to set the stage for everything. Win or lose.
Right on. Okay, so yes, I think that you hit the nail on the head. And no doubting, or rather no denying that it's going to have a, no pun intended, ripple effect into the entire industry. I do think that this regulation by enforcement point of departure that the SEC is taking is ultimately going to come and bite, maybe not them, but really stifle innovation in the country. It already has.
Yeah, one thing I might say, and I don't know if you guys would enjoy this or not, I don't know if I do, but this lawsuit could actually give Ripple an advantage over every other, or even XRP as a whole, an advantage over every other crypto, simply because there is regulation by enforcement in this particular case that may bring clarity for XRP specifically, rather than all crypto assets. I think that's probably the best case scenario for Ripple in terms of being able to move forward in the space. And that's one thing that I feel like it's sort of overlooked in a sense, where this case may almost be entirely independent to how Ripple may operate and maybe even independent to how XRP is classified as, while the entire space is left ambiguous. You sort of see this notion where Bitcoin people try to say this, where they're like, oh my God, Gary said this about Bitcoin, therefore, and there's sort of this asserting the same notion that, oh, well, this one token has clarity, well, everyone else doesn't. The same thing can happen here, but actually happen based off of the result of this lawsuit. Now, whether that's good or bad, obviously, if you're very invested in Ripple and XRP, you may look at that as good, but it could also have a residual effect of making it incredibly difficult to be able to participate in any other projects. So if you're interested in HBAR, XDC, even Ethereum, whatever, this could potentially have a positive effect for XRP, but a negative effect for the rest of the space. Just as an idea. It's not saying that is the case, but that potentially is the best case for Ripple. And I actually do believe I saw David Schwartz even talking about this on Twitter, sort of like in a memeing way, where it's like, oh yeah, we don't necessarily want to be put in a position where we shut the door on everybody else, but that might be the best case for us if that opportunity is available. And at least from my perspective, if that opportunity is available, it'd be silly for them not to take it. Totally based on the fact that this lawsuit is focused around Ripple and not focused around crypto as a whole.
Yeah, so I'm inclined to agree. I don't know. I know you're speculating. I don't know. As I mentioned earlier, it's only going to have negative. If the SEC wins the lawsuit, it's only going to have negative effects for the industry. I don't see any positives coming out of it. And so, go ahead.
I was actually going to say on top of that, well, the reason I say there could be a positive is you have to look at what they end up doing. So here's an example. Do you even know why? Does anyone know why the SEC was created in the first place? Just rhetorical, I guess. Anyone know?
Yeah, to be honest.
The reason why the reason why the SEC was created in the first place, it's actually kind of funny, was because of the Great Depression. It was because there was all the speculation, high on margin, people being crazy, people letting loose, and some regulatory agency needed to come into play and do something about it. I don't necessarily see that this is the exact same thing for Ripple, but I could see this being the exact same thing for crypto. If there is a Tether disaster and Tether implodes, or if there's a massive margin, or what's it called, a massive liquidation on margin across the board, that could potentially spur something like that. And that's why I sort of go into, like, this lawsuit may not necessarily be everything. It may be a lot for Ripple. Ripple may be able to get a lot of traction from this, but I don't necessarily see them losing the lawsuit as necessarily a bad thing, depending on what happens with that. It could be a nothing thing where they penalize Ripple and they don't really talk about or regular crypto assets, and then whatever comes next, like I said, whether it's ruling by enforcement because of a crash in the space, or whether it's a ruling by essentially trying to get ahead of whatever it may be, I think that's the thing that really determines what is going to happen in the broader crypto space. Now, Ripple losing the lawsuit will be bad for Ripple, that's for sure, but I don't know if that necessarily carries over to the rest of the space, because it's not quite about the rest of the space. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is I think more of a disaster in the space would cause a serious means for regulatory control. The same way the Great Depression created the SEC, you may see some crypto crash create the Crypto Exchange Commission, whatever. But
well, look, man, you made a great point. I guess it matters more. What happens, like how the SEC is punished, whether it's done publicly, whether it's done behind doors, closed doors. But man, on that last point, I really hope that we don't see a cataclysmic effect or event like we saw with Terra Luna plus FTX in 2022. I think, I've been hearing Tether FUD since 2017, but I think a Tether implosion would be catastrophic. At least a Tether implosion where it just depegs and stays depegged.
I actually think I think it's sort of inevitable that we're going to see a cascading crash in the space, simply due to two main things. One, since there's no regulation, anybody can essentially do anything. Anyone can just take out as much margin, as much debt, as much anything, to the nth degree. And then with that, you essentially have this means of anyone being able to automate everything. So traditional markets usually have like these triggers that would essentially stop the market from crashing, where crypto is just all or nothing. If there was a huge cascading event, I don't know how fast the market would need to move to create a to create what I'll call like a nexus event, where you would see mass liquidity. You saw this before, I think, with Three Arrows Capital, and this happened a little bit, where like the market dropped like 30% in like an hour or something. But that's the thing, though, that may not be the worst thing that could happen. What if it's 40% or 50%? And after it reaches that threshold, you may just see every single bot out there, every single account on margin, every single thing out there that's leveraged to the nth degree just get wiped out. And then I think that's going to create a further cascading effect, especially when you see a lot of these different ecosystems. I criticize Ethereum a little bit because of the tether issue, but what ends up happening is, and you can see this in the ETH situation, since in the ETH ecosystem, since every asset on Ethereum is measured in Ethereum. If Ethereum were to crash, and this isn't just for Ethereum, I'm just giving this example with Ethereum, this happens for every network, but if the main token, the layer 1 token, were to crash in value, that's going to essentially destroy liquidity into the other tokens, which means that they'll also crash in value. And like I said, there are no triggers or safety, so there'll just be liquidations upon liquidations upon liquidations, bots on bots on bots on bots, shorts on shorts on shorts on shorts. You essentially have the mother of all crashes, simply because the entire space is automated and there's nothing to stop anything from just falling in free fall, if that were to be the case. And I don't think there's anything that's going to essentially stop that. I think the only thing that's pushing it forward is more money coming into the space, more credit, more margin, and that's only making the problem worse. So I kind of think it's inevitable. The real question is just how bad is it going to be?
Yeah, all great points again, and I would make the argument that we kind of saw. I mean, when you're saying it's inevitable, didn't we already see this happen with there was Terra Luna, and then it was compounded by FTX. We saw Bitcoin go from 69K all the way down to, on some exchanges, centralized exchanges, I think it was like 13 point something K. So what I mean, a lot of people got liquidated, a lot of people got wrecked. There was tons of over leveraging in the industry, and those individuals got wiped out. I would think there would need to be a massive implosion. Like there would be Binance would have to implode, or Tether would have to implode, for the kind of the scenario that you're painting to come to fruition.
Yeah, because what I'm trying to articulate is it's hard to comprehend because you don't know how far down the floor could be. So you may go, oh, that was a huge crash. Well, it may be considered nothing compared to the next crash, and that crash may be considered nothing compared to the next one. It really depends on the circumstance that creates the crash. And I don't think we are in an environment that would help the market recover well if there was a cascading event. Like I said, it's not just one thing that's crashing. It's one thing creating another crash, creating another crash, creating another crash, and then it's all entirely automated. So like we see this in the stock market actually, where you may see a flash crash because a whole bunch of bots essentially came in and they all sold at the same time, and you see it and you see it crash, like, maybe in the stock market crash like 10% or something, whatever. But the thing is like, this is something that already happens, and we try to do everything we can to essentially like mitigate this. And I don't think we've essentially seen the worst of it yet. Now, you may say, well, we had crashes before, but I'd argue that's kind of cope in terms of what can be happening further. It's like saying, oh, we've had the worst crash, we're not gonna have another one. Well, if you're wrong, then essentially you're going to be in another crash. Now, obviously, if you're right, you'd essentially may be able to move forward, but I'd say you want to stand on the foundation of what would essentially build a more sustainable economy moving forward, as opposed to just saying that we're past the worst of it. Because I would even say that people are incredibly irrational now. People are still just throwing money, throwing debt, incredibly speculative. I'll even say this one thing too. This is probably one of my biggest criticisms of the space, but when people talk about the use case of crypto, it's about what people are using it for. And there's this huge thing that I see that I think will actually spark a crash, is that people are buying these tokens because they think they're going to make money. What happens when the idea of making money with these tokens is no longer persisting? Everyone sells. Everyone. Because if you're not going to make money, why would I hold it? And if I'm selling and then everyone else is selling because I don't think I'm going to make money, then you see what I mean? And I think people still have this idea of making money off of these tokens, which isn't a problem. I just think that if that idea were to go away, we'd see something pretty crazy.
It's a great point. And I heard a lot of these arguments, and I know that we're in a different economic atmosphere than we were 5 years ago in 2018. I heard a lot of these same, and I don't know what's going to happen, by the way. I heard a lot of these same points being made, though, about it can always go lower. It can always go lower, and it is going to go lower. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I'm just saying that it can only go lower. It can only get worse until it doesn't. And so I completely agree that the utility for 99%, I think it was DS earlier that said 99% of NFT projects are useless vaporware. And I followed that up with, I think 99% of this crypto industry, the stuff that's being built, forgive me for saying it, but is in that same boat. And so the point you made about how once these tokens are no longer perceived as something where number go up, we could see another cascading effect where everything dumps and Bitcoin goes to 5K. Who fucking knows? But that that is yet to be seen.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point. Is I guess here's the main thing. If you're willing to say that 99% of the market is vaporware, would you also be willing to say that in that same vein, the market is sustainable like that?
No, absolutely not. I completely agree with you. But I think that one, I don't know if I'm right about 99% of it. I am going based on my anecdotal experience. When I look around, I mean, I'm on my computer doing this every day, and I don't know when the majority of people are going to come to that realization. So I agree with pretty much every point that you've made, by the way.
Well, Noah, that's what I said before as well, and that's a problem not with XRP at all.
I quoted
but in general. In general with crypto and for all projects and people building, because lots of us in here, they love words like utility, but they don't care. They buy tokens because they want to make money, and that's a problem for serious people actually building something.
Yeah, and I only say all of this as someone who's actually scared as fuck for everything that's about to happen. I believe that this could create so many different ripples in the space. But I think the only way to defend against this is for different networks or different tokens to have a base level of sustainable demand. And the reason I say that is, let's say you have a huge amount of demand speculative wise. Well, if every single person who holds, or at least the majority of anyone who holds that token, essentially dumps it because they no longer demand it anymore, you may essentially see a means in which the network may no longer be sustainable because of, well, how much the price has dropped. And it could be part on the network's part. It could be part on there just isn't enough demand in terms of people using the network to be able to sustain the network. And the only defense against this is to have a base level of demand on any given network that can be sustainable regardless of what the price is. And that just comes down to, do you need the token to run something regardless of the price? If you're running a business, regardless of the price, can you still run your business? If you're providing liquidity, can you still provide liquidity regardless of the price? If that's the case, you will always demand the token to be able to run that business. It's the only defense against this. If you don't have this, you're gone. And I'm only saying this because I'm terrified out of my fucking mind, man. Like, that's the only reason I bring this up.
So I'm gonna just kind of take a different approach, or rather take a different stance for the sake of the argument, or rather just to play devil's advocate. We saw this happen last bull market, right? A lot of the tokens that people were buying into, well, even a lot of the top 100 tokens that people were buying into so they could outpace Bitcoin. If you go and look, Bitcoin beat all of them out. So eventually people recognize what has utility and what doesn't, and what has tangible value and what doesn't. And in the previous bull run, really it was Bitcoin for most of it, Chainlink. There were some unicorns, but outside of that, Ethereum kind of blew up starting at the end of 2020 and beginning 2021. I think you'll see that same trend with this bear market. There still is tangible value that can be seen in the Web3 gaming sector, right? I'm not talking about play to earn. I'm talking about video games being built that are actually fun to play, first and foremost, that bring people in regardless of whether or not they're making money, but are, as icing on the cake, adding the notions of asset ownership, taking the in-game currency and turning it into turning it into a utility token that is tradable with real world value, monetary value. That's one. Two, tokenization of real world assets in the form of NFTs. So allowing people to invest in property, for example, when they otherwise might not have access to it. Invest in a rental property and earn some sort of yield from that. So let me just be clear, like the 99% argument that I made in 2018 isn't the same 99% argument today. There is more tangible value. We are starting to see the industry mature, especially in certain sectors. So yeah, there's some bullish sentiment to throw in there.
And I totally get that. The only thing is, like I said, it just comes down to, is there more demand for these networks predicated off people being able to run these applications, or is there more demand predicated off of speculation? This is like, the only reason I say this is how every crash ever happens. No one has a crash because accurate economic growth was depicted. They have crashes because bubbles were created and there was more speculation in the market than there was actual like engagement in terms of economic growth. Now, I think in terms of the overarching economic growth, it is not reflective of the value. I think we're incredibly overinflated, like to an insane degree. And I think everyone has a vested interest to maintain that overinflation because everyone feels so good about the price going up. But then, like I said, what happens when that sense, like I don't think we've ever had a sense in which people who would sit there and say, buy the lows, sit there and said, get out. And that's what I'm trying to say is the sentiment that changes everything. And if there's more people who are speculating in a market than there are people engaging in the economic growth of that market, you're going to see a huge crash like you see in every crash ever, whether it's the Great Depression, whether it's like Black Monday in the 80s, whether it's 2001, 2008. And that's the thing, everyone going up to these crashes feels incredibly confident about these things not happening. That's part of what creates these things in the first place. So it's just, don't take my word for it. I'm just very, very skeptical on where the space is going to go in terms of sentiment shifting. But I do think at the very least, these need to be on the top of everyone's mind. At the very least, at least to recognize the signs that there might be a change in sentiment on the profitability of the space as a whole. Not to mention the credit issue of people just dumping more and more credit into the market, and that can't go on forever.
So for brevity's sake, as Michael Burry put it, sell. No, I'm just kidding. Not financial advice. I don't know what's going to happen. But I do think, well, this is a pretty big space. If anyone wants to come up and join the conversation, honestly, Quincy's been carrying this DS. I really appreciate you guys coming on. XRP Queen still in the mix. TexRP, Edo, Luffy, it's been a pleasure having all you guys on stage. We got Max Entropy in the mix. I think we have some people that are trying to come up. Let's see. Why is it not letting me bring?
No, it would be really great because I know you. This is an XRP Community Spaces, and I know that lots of your people in the audience are non-XRP or XRPL people. I'm very happy to interact with them and to hear what their opinions are and what their questions are to us.
Yeah, exactly. So if anyone has questions, go ahead, come up and ask.
Yeah, that's a great point. I always love contrasting opinions. I don't like echo chambers. It really helps. It really helps for me to, and sorry about my cat, guys, but it really helps organize my thoughts and understand a broader perspective. So if anyone has any pushback or hates XRP, we got an army up here that is ready to defend it. So come on up.
I have some observations if you have time.
Go ahead, man.
Hi, I'm driving. I'm a bit distracted, but not terribly. We know some things. We know that Gensler, I've been in this space since 2011. I'm a developer. I've developed, a number of significant products, and they're not particularly relevant to crypto. But we know some things. We know that the SEC is going to go after a lot of the players in the crypto space, right? We think that the SEC represents the banking community. We sort of know that Judge Torres articled or studied underneath Judge Hellerstein, which was he was involved with the 9/11 legal settlements for the towers. We know that that the CBDCs are being introduced this year, next year, soon, right, around the world. If you have CBDCs, and if you believe the Ripple story, which I don't entirely, but I believe part of it, the interconnectedness between central bank digital currencies should be a significant factor. So I think that I don't think you can believe anything. I suspect that the lawsuit is there to delay Ripple's involvement with the CBD sector. And we also know that we haven't seen Amazon, Apple, Google, none of the major players have actually introduced a wallet token or allowed cryptocurrencies into the wallet, for example, Apple. So we know some things and we don't know other things. Over.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't. Let me try to tie that back into the conversation we were having before this. I don't know what a world with CBDCs look like. I don't really want to take this on too big of a tangent, so I'll just leave it at that. I hope the U.S. doesn't implement a CBDC. I think if there's one country that's going to see a lot of pushback on it, it would be this one. As we saw during the pandemic. Anyway, I'm not going to go that route.
I'd make the argument that implementing a CBDC from the average user's perspective wouldn't look any different than you accessing your bank account. Actually, you'll probably see that you can make transactions overnight, and you'll see all these benefits. But I don't think it's going to be like, oh my God, there's CBDCs. Like, I think it's sort of a technology stack that could be adopted that allows them to facilitate certain services that most people aren't going to be familiar with. Like, most people still aren't familiar with what the current banking sector setup is now. What makes you think that they'll be familiar with the future aspect of it?
If there's a stock market crash, people will be unemployed. In Canada, which is where I am, universal basic income has been tested maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I expect they'll roll out UBI with CBDC to feed people. And that's how they'll introduce it. Over.
I mean, I don't disagree with that.
That could actually be, yeah. So.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I just don't like. I think we emphasize this idea of a CBDC so much when it could just be like a technical term used in regards to how they facilitate exchanging value between different entities. I don't think there's going to be this huge marketing campaign of, look, we're interested. They may say UBI and they may say blah 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 blah, but like I don't necessarily see it as like the same way that we view this in terms of crypto terms may not be the same way that these banks view it in terms of bank terms.
Yeah, and see, it's a very important question of how we're actually looking at those CBDCs, right? So a lot of people are scared of them. A lot of people are believing that the whole world's going to be enslaved with CBDCs. I don't think so, right? So it's basically a design question, right? So some governments will have some tools in their CBDCs because it is programmable money, right? But for example, the Bank of England came out and said that no institution, not the Bank of England, and neither the government has any right or some possibility to track your transaction and basically restrict you from buying certain things, right? So they are quite aware of that. They are aware of those privacy concerns, and yeah, I think that's a design question every country has to make on its own, right? So of course, there's different CBDC design in China than it is, for example, in Europe. But yeah, that's just also a political question, right?
Like, one thing I wanted to say, just to give sort of an example, like when we so we had the dollar, right? The dollar was on the gold standard, like fully on the gold standard. Then we went to a gold reserve standard. Then we got off the standard. Those three different standards for the dollar were entirely different economic systems that facilitated the dollar. We still called it the dollar, and the average person probably didn't really understand what was going on the back end that supported that. I think CBDCs are the exact same thing, where we could be moving on to not another standard in any regard, but we just moving on to an entirely new economic system that the average person just has absolutely no understanding of. I think even just like to even start getting into the weeds of this, you start having to go to like going to school for finance, economics, going to get an MBA, starting to dive in deep into how these systems work in order to be able to just break down what's happening, as opposed to just saying, oh yeah, we're moving on to this. Now, don't get me wrong, it means there may be a surface level understanding that things are changing, but I don't think the average person is going to have the in-depth knowledge of what that means. Like you said, like from going from the gold standard to the gold reserve standard to being on the fiat standard and the credit system, I think the average person still just goes, oh, dollars, look at that, you see?
So
I
if
think.
you go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I think he made a very good point about CBDCs, but I just see like the world's going digital, and there's nothing we can do to actually stop it. Either we agree or we disagree with that. So personally, I don't like to call it either a good thing or a bad thing, because I always like to think that I am myself in control. So I don't like to put outside circumstances or to find like excuses like is the government's fault or that, even though I really dislike what, for example, happens in China, where they are using CBDCs for not the best intentions. But I do believe now we have two choices. Either one is actually people are going to join the new financial system as early investors, or they actually going to be consumers. So I think now is the time that people have to make choices. Either they want to get informed and they want to take the best financial decisions, and they want to choose the assets that are going to play a major role in the new financial system, which the information is up there for everyone to access, or they will just keep ignoring it like our grandparents perhaps did when Facebook came out and when social media, and they resisted in the beginning, but now they are all using it. So I do believe it's always better to be an early investor than a late consumer.
And by the way, I'm trying to bring some of you guys up. I don't know why it usually gives, it says I have 2 spots available. King, I tried to bring you up once. It buffered and you weren't able to come up. But this has been an XRP community space, as you can see from the title. And we've been going for almost 2 hours. If anyone wants to come up, share insights, push back on the XRP army, I've learned a lot so far. There were many things about XRP and the overall ecosystem that I wasn't well versed on. And I had the beloved panelists here drop some knowledge. Mansa Musa, what's going on?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing good. Welcome.
All right. I see Quincy's been pretty busy last couple of days. He's everywhere. Anyway, here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the crypto space, right? And I see there's a lot of tribalism. And with that tribalism, what happens is it seems like it makes it weaker. I don't see why a lot of the communities don't come together and make the crypto space stronger, so that way all boats rise with all boats rising. You know.
Say that again.
Well, I think that's a very important thing, right? What you just mentioned. That's really important. So, a lot of us in the XRP community actually say that all boats shall rise, but actually, what is important is to really have a level playing field on which actually different things can compete on, right? So if you have like different measures that are applied to certain projects, right? I think that's a problem, right? If we're saying, for example, that transactions per second, it doesn't matter if it's 7 or if it's 1500. Well, it does matter, right? So the financial system is not going to run on 7 transactions per second, right? So to have
hold on. Can I go after you real quick though, brother? When you're done, I'm just saying real quick. I want to go after Luffy real quick, if that's okay.
Yo, King, what's up? Let's go.
Yeah, you know what time it is. Well, go ahead, Luffy. Continue, Luffy. I just came out from eating my food to sit in my car to speak and listen to you guys. But go ahead, Luffy. Do your thing, man.
Yeah, I was actually already finished. So it's important to compete on a level playing field, and those currencies and all of those projects, let them compete. Let the best project win, and let's have a playing field where a lot of projects may thrive, right? But we cannot do that with different measures. So we have to have a unified measures in those assumptions, right? So King, go ahead.
I got a lot of juicy stuff that I could share.
I'm waiting for it, man.
I got you already know what time it is, cause everybody on here is basically saying everything exactly what I said was gonna happen. Like I've been trying to tell people. But first, let me say hello to some people in here. What's up, blockchain backer? I used to watch you all the time. What's up, James Rule? What's up, Ito? Mansa. Who else? Well, I don't really know the aquarium guy, but what's up?
Tell us what time it is though.
It's digital shift time. What up, Quincy? The U.S. Treasury, right? They went and said that we're gonna go ahead and make this digital dollar. Even though with all of the policy people, you know how they're bickering, going back and forth. Oh, should we create this or not? Should we do this or not? The Treasury's going ahead and developing the digital dollar right now. So, and that's what they said literally out of their mouth. And this is a lot of stuff that nobody's really paying attention to. And the way the world is shifting right now is happening so fast. Hold on. I'm just hold on. This is very exciting.
It's very emotional, right, King?
Yeah. Sorry, grown man crying, but it's cool. Hold on. I'm trying to get it out, man. I'm just happy to be here with all of you, and I just try to tell everybody the truth. That's all this stuff that's happening right now. I just been trying to tell people and help as many people as I can, but a lot of people didn't want to listen, and a lot of people just wanted to keep on attacking me. But it's okay, because everything that I said that was going to happen is literally happening right now. So with that being said, yeah, sorry, got emotional there for a second. But anyways, it's all happening right now, and you know, you got to take in factor that the world right now is literally destroyed. It's just destroyed. Everybody's suffering. Nobody really has money like that. Eggs are like $10 for a dozen. You know what I mean? And this is gonna happen so fast that nobody's gonna be able to see it, and nobody is ready for it, man. Like, nobody's ready. Nobody knows what's going on. But within the next couple of months, they're developing the digital dollar, and you're gonna need something to transfer it on. You know what I'm saying? So it has to transfer through a new virtual currency once the petrodollar is dead. And XRP is going to be together with Interledger Protocol, transferring trillions of transactions per second. And a lot of people still, you know, they don't understand that what's happening, because there's so much FUD going around. Like I told people, the FUD is always going to be the loudest before the explosion. And I think everybody in this room can agree with me that that's exactly what is happening. So there's a lot of lies being spread around XRP, and don't listen to them, because as you can see, the ISO 20022 is going live this month, and don't let anybody, you know, shake you out of your bags, because a lot of people are saying, let me know if I'm talking too much. I don't want to interrupt anybody's slot.
No, I mean, you got to the point eventually. I was curious to know what point you were going to make, and you said you're going to tell us what time it is. So I get what time it is. You're saying XRP is going to be the solution to a lot of the problems that we're seeing today.
Yes. So with that being said, you have to go back. If you really paid attention, and people really were paying attention, and a lot of people don't pay attention. You know what I'm saying? So there's just so much information in my head. It's just unimaginable. Like, it's crazy. But can I just play this real quick from the Bank of International Settlements? It's only a minute. If that's okay, I'll just go ahead and play it.
What
Is it
what
cool?
is it? What is it?
It's from the Bank of International Settlements about digital money and all that stuff.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So this is the stuff that I've been trying to show people that nobody really pays attention to because they're too busy looking at, oh, XRP is going to $2,000 tomorrow. All this clickbait garbage that's not telling you the truth. But this is the truth, and this just came out I believe yesterday or the day before yesterday. I'm going to play it right now.
Just for a short background information for the audience, the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, is the central bank of central banks. So just so everyone knows that.
Exactly. So this is the head of the central bank guy, the head of the Bank of International Settlements right here.
Selling and transferring assets faster, cheaper, and more transparent. Bank deposits and central bank money in the same programmable form.
Oh my God! Did you hear what he just said right there? Hold on. Here we go.
Hold on.
Really?
If you're gonna play it, can you just play it and let us listen to it?
Or I was gonna say,
can
you just drop the video in the comments, and then we could all just click on it.
Yeah, or that. And I'm probably gonna close the space here, guys, soon. It's been a really informative space. I really appreciate everyone coming on.
I'm gonna play and I'm gonna drop it in there. I just airdropped it to my.
Thank you guys so much for joining and dropping knowledge on me. I know I learned a lot. I'm hoping the community also learned a lot. Don't just believe the one-liners or the FUD about XRP. Actually do your due diligence and come up, draw your own conclusions based on that. Because I've been schooled on Dogecoin, believe it or not. I've been schooled on Ripple now. And there are a lot of different ecosystems and protocols that I would, especially when I was a newbie in the space, 2017, 2018, that I would hear FUD about, or I would just kind of hear anecdotal feedback about, and I would make an absolute decision on, and that was wrong. So I'm hoping that Ripple wins the SEC case. I think it's a massive net positive for the entire industry. And I'm also curious to see how this XRP ledger develops. So guys, thank you again for coming on. If you have any closing statements for the community, definitely share them now. Otherwise, I'm going to close things out and we'll see you all in the next one.
Thank you, Noah. Did an excellent job, mate. It was a pleasure. And have a good evening, everyone, or good morning. I don't know what time zone you are, guys. See you.
Yeah, man, Noah, thanks for hosting. Awesome space. Thank you, Whale. Thank you, the Aquarium. He didn't say much, but yeah, thanks, guys. Awesome space, and looking forward to the next one. And if anyone has something, questions, just shoot me a DM. No problem.
Well, thanks for hosting this space. We really appreciate the opportunity for the XRP Army to represent and to give as much detail as we can to the crypto space at large, and just to show that there's other projects out there building other use cases and other utilities aside from Ripple. And as one project building on the space here, I can say that I find the XRPL to be completely open source, and that's why we're building on it. So thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you, guys, and XRP to the moon.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Remember that everything you hear on this broadcast is meant for educational purposes only. Nothing is financial advice. So be safe out there, and we'll see you all in the next one. Take care.